The word family connotes different images for each of us. Some are positive, and some are negative.
Even within many areas of Christendom, the concept of family and its responsibilities is a far cry from the biblical view of family.
The biblical concept of family has become blurred by ever-shifting cultural ideas. So we want to spend a little time exploring how the family has changed in the past 2 or 3 generations in the United States.
In Lesson 3 of discussing how to restore the early church, we present the 3 family types that predominate in the life cycle of any culture. As you'll see, they progress downward away from God's design for family. The 3 family types are trustee, domestic, and atomistic.
The trustee family is the most stable form. The truths that older people pass along from generation to generation are highly esteemed.
The governing authority of the trustee family is generally a patriarchy, ruled by the oldest and wisest men. Divorce rarely occurs, and individuals are expected to set aside their own interests for the greater good of their family as a whole.
Intergenerational family members work together cooperatively to provide for each other's needs. The solid stability of this family type was the pattern of our Hebraic forefathers who first placed their trust in Jesus.
Remember this, the trustee family was predominant in the earliest church. In other words, when you think of our spiritual forefathers, you need to consider the family pattern that supported their spiritual development. It was a critical part of their relational intimacy and commitment to each other.
As we'll see, the trustee family is crucial for today's followers of Jesus. You can also find more on this in our book or audio recording, Pastoring by Elders.
After a period of time, a civilization leaves the trustee form, and the domestic family becomes the norm. The domestic family comes about when the intergenerational responsibilities of the trustee family are lost.
Following World War II in 1945, the domestic family reigned for a few decades until the Vietnam era in the 60s and 70s. The domestic family structure puts great value on the unitary family, that is, the father, mother, and children. The older generations have little influence or esteem, and the authority of the elders within the extended family diminishes. Divorce begins to take place. And within Christendom, reliance on the wisdom of older generations is often replaced by the religious hierarchy of trained professionals.
In the domestic family framework, a husband and a wife function as a unit. They assume major responsibility for raising their children according to the values they believe are right. Yet they often live far from their own parents, so intergenerational contact is minimal.
Parents are willing to undergo the pain of childbirth and the trials of child rearing because they view their children as an extension of themselves.
But they can get pretty stressed out because of the responsibility they're bearing apart from their extended family. Many Christian homeschoolers today find themselves without the support of their extended intergenerational family, and this has made nurturing the next generation all the more difficult.
The least stable of the family structures is the atomistic family. This family type began to mushroom in the 1970s and most accurately describes today's family as well as much of Western Christendom.
In the atomistic culture, people are disconnected from one another, even in their own household. They're like individual atoms in pursuit of their own rights and interests, even to the neglect of their family responsibilities.
Self-sacrifice was a way of life for the trustee and domestic families.
By contrast, complete and unabashed selfishness characterizes the atomistic family.
The cravings of people's sin nature take over, and society acts like a swarm of antagonistic insects.
In the atomistic family, immorality and divorce are common. Rather than sacrificing to raise a family, couples with financial means either choose to remain childless or limit the number of kids to one. Religious and moral standards don't protect the sanctity of the family, and marriage is no longer a permanent committed covenant. In fact, parenthood and authority in general are looked down on. and that makes it all the harder for those who are still trying to raise children with biblical values.
Where the trustee family was based on biblical principles, the atomistic family is self-seeking, with little or no regard for biblical boundaries. As you can see, our society has fallen far away from the family design which the Bible describes and our Father intends for His children. And Christendom at large has become an atomistic institution as well.
Throughout the 1980s, we'd survey people who came to our retreat center. We found that about 1 in 40 adults were raised in God-centered families. 39 out of 40 people came to Christ as adults, and many were products of broken homes.
Today, instead of reaffirming and supporting the biblical foundations of family, a large segment of Christendom purposely appeals to the atomistic, self-serving mindset. Congregations attract people through lively worship and entertaining sermons. They use pleasant programs that pass for fellowship and fun youth activities that parallel those of the world. Services are designed not to reinforce the home as a spiritual center, but to attract and entertain people like a movie theater does.
These are attempts to appeal to the sin-based atomistic mindset. Repentance and confession of sins are minimized, so people won't feel uncomfortable having to confront their sins and their need for forgiveness.
Like corporate America, which competes in the atomistic culture, size and market share are the measures of success for mega congregations.
The huge impersonal megachurch has become the idol of today's religious leaders. But all the production and activities and programs nullify any responsibility for spiritual development in the home. Even many of your religious neighbors will cajole you, "Just come to our service. You'll enjoy it. We'll make you feel good."
We mentioned earlier that the self-centered atomistic influence predominates both in this nation in general and in Western Christendom. Grieve with us over these statistics. The U.S. leads the world in fatherless families.
34% of all kids live in homes in which their father is absent. 40% of children in fatherless homes haven't seen their dad in the last year. The number of children raised by single mothers has tripled since 1970.
Throughout this nation, people who are churched surpass unbelievers in divorce. The rate of divorce among believers is 50% higher in the Bible Belt than among those who don't profess to be Christian. Clergy have become one of the top occupations for divorce. The moral standards and lifestyles of both Christians and non-Christians are exactly the same.
Were you aware of these statistics? How do they affect your idea of how Christians are supposed to reflect Jesus in the world when in many ways they're worse than the world?